I get it, you're staring at a list of network video recorders, wondering if you should throw a few $1,000s at an enterprise-grade box or keep using the little ENVR you cobbled together from a spare PC. You've probably already spent a few evenings watching YouTube unbox videos, reading specs that read like a hardware catalog, and feeling a little nervous about picking something that looks good on paper but ends up being a headache to manage. I was in that spot a few months ago when my small office needed a reliable way to archive footage from a handful of 4K cameras, and I didn't want to end up with a device that would need a technician every week. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you start digging into the UniFi Enterprise Network Video Recorder, the first thing that sticks out is the promise of professional connectivity and a complete package. Those words sound great until you sit down and actually try to wire everything together. The ENVR is essentially a purpose-built mini-server that sits on a shelf and talks to the rest of your UniFi ecosystem using the same controller software you already use for switches and Wi-Fi access points. That means you won't have to learn a brand new interface. The same dashboard that shows you your network health will also let you add cameras, set recording schedules, and pull back footage. In practice, the setup is pretty straightforward if you're already comfortable with UniFi. You plug the unit into a PE-enabled switch, power it up, and the controller automatically discovers it. From there, you can assign cameras that are already on your UniFi Protect network, and the ENVR handles the storage and transcoding. The extended range claim is less about Wi-Fi distance and more about the fact that the device can manage up to 50 cameras across multiple sites, thanks to its 10 GB uplink. For a single-site office with 10 cameras, that's overkill, but if you run a chain of retail locations and want a single pane of glass for all your footage, the ability to scale without swapping hardware is a real time saver. Now, let's talk about the actual box you'll be holding. The compact design is a relief compared to the hulking rack units that dominate the enterprise market. It's about the size of a small desktop tower, which means you can tuck it in a closet or mount it on a wall rack without sacrificing too much space. The construction feels solid metal chassis, well ventilated, and the fans are quiet enough that you won't hear them in a conference room. That said, the compactness also means there's limited room for internal upgrades. The unit ships with a 4 TB SSD and you can add a second drive, but you can't swap out the existing storage without a full shutdown. If you anticipate needing petabytes of footage or want hot-swappable drives for redundancy, you'll have to look elsewhere. One of the hidden trade-offs is the reliance on the UniFi Protect ecosystem. The ENVR only records cameras that are part of a UniFi Protect setup, so you can't just throw a random OnVIF camera onto the network and expect it to work. That's fine if you're already invested in Ubiquiti's camera lineup, but it becomes a blocker if you've already bought a mix of brands. The upside is that the integration eliminates the guesswork around codecs, stream compatibility, and firmware mismatches. The downside is you're locked into a single vendor for future camera upgrades, which can feel restrictive if you like to cherry-pick the best sensor for each location. From a daily usability standpoint, the ENVR shines in its complete package promise. The out-of-the-box software includes motion detection, event-based recording, and the ability to set per-camera retention policies. In my office, I set the lobby cameras to keep 30 days of footage at full resolution, while the back-office cameras only keep a week. The system automatically deletes older files according to those rules, so you never have to manually clean up storage. The UI also lets you export clips with a few clicks, useful when you need to hand over video to law enforcement or an insurance adjuster. I've never hit a scenario where I needed to dig through a separate management portal just to get a clip. There are a few practical weaknesses worth flagging before you click Buy. First, the ENVR runs on a Linux-based OS that is largely hidden behind the UniFi UI. If something goes wrong, say a corrupted database or a failed firmware update, you'll probably need to SSH in and run some command line fixes, which isn't ideal for a non-technical IT admin. Ubiquiti does provide a recovery image, but the process isn't as polished as a consumer ENVR that simply rolls back to a previous version. Second, the device's power consumption is higher than a typical consumer box. It draws around 30 watts under load, so if you're budgeting for a green office or trying to keep your electricity bill low, that adds up over time. Lastly, the price point is a clear signal. You're paying for the UniFi integration and the promise of future scalability.